I had been raised to be completely self-sufficient, and to ask for help was basically the most shameful thing you could do. And I understand why my parents had that perspective from their own experiences. So I was in an incredibly difficult emotional and mental space where I had to, in many ways, very quickly get a new parameter around asking for help, because shame was not going to get the job done. And I had to find a way to acknowledge the shame, find new thought patterns that actually gave me a way to move forward, and then actually action them, which is a whole different thing. You might be able to think your way into something, but taking action and the vulnerability, I had to reach out and say, I can't get my groceries, I can't clean my house, I can't do my washing, there's nothing I can do, basically. And roster friends. I didn't have family. I was thousands of miles from family. Australia is a very, very big country. And I set up a roster for people to come and visit, because I was alone, to come and manage the chores. A girlfriend of mine hired a cleaner for me out of a very generous act of support. And there was a roster of people who went into the market and got food for me. And there was a roster of people who took me to medical appointments. And the team at the office sent the biggest box of chocolate I have ever seen, and lots of just best wishes. And for me, that was warm, but I had left the office behind because now I was in an insurance conversation. And so I had actually transitioned psychologically out of work into an insurance dialogue. One of the tools that I think is helpful for people is that we often find that we either think of ourselves as well or not well. We're either up or down. And that leaves us feeling really disempowered. I prefer to think of it as that I have a circle of capacity that expands and contracts. So when one of my chronic conditions flares, then that circle is contracted, and then I can be clear about what my capacity is in a contracted circle. And then expansion is a bonus. And that stops me from thinking I'm either well or not well. And it also is a really useful way to explain to colleagues and leaders that this is an expansion and contraction, not a well or not well conversation. The other thing that I had to work out is that we have a really rubbish story about illness, and it comes with this thing of if you're unwell, you should get well, which doesn't work with chronic conditions. So I kept thinking I was going to get well and waiting for when I would be well, and I did myself a disservice. I didn't know that if I'd actually thought about this as a disability or dynamic disability, I would have given myself a lot more space, and I would have utilised a whole lot more organisational support than carrying it all on my shoulders and trying to mentally push myself through to get well. And so I always encourage people to actually think about, where does this fit in terms of a disability policy at the organisational level? The third thing about that narrative is that I needed to work out how to have healthy professional boundaries, because in the early stages, I was like, in the vulnerability and sort of, explaining everything all on the table, and that was making me way more vulnerable. Nobody needed that level of information, but I was trying to tell them all the things I was doing to try and get well, to prove that I was trying to get well. And so I had to stop that behavior. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for work. What I needed to do was be very clear about capacity and that I was following medical advice. And so that is what I shifted my language to, is this is the medical advice and I'm following that advice, and this is my capacity. And what that did was depersonalize it from me trying to have this relationship with everybody else about me to the actual appropriate relationship, which was, I really am following medical advice. And when they say take this treatment, I take the treatment. And when they say, no, that's too much, I follow that. And that served me so much better. It took a long time for me to work this out for myself, which is why I'm so thrilled to share this with people and to really mentor people through this process, as well as do this in groups and organisations, so that we have a safe container to talk about all the things that nobody else knows about that you're actually trying to manage at work, And we can work on your inner skills in a robust way so that you turn up to the conversation actually feeling confident.